Hello, welcome again to FairTax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are the FairTax guys. Still trying to get really rid of the income tax and send the IRS to the scrap heap of history where they belong. And we need you to help us out a little bit.
Yeah, because actually we are a little protest sign. How's that? All right?
Why?
All right, because
there you go.
Taxpayers matter. Defund the IRS because taxpayers matter. We can protest too.
Indeed. All right. Yeah. We're going to expand a little bit more on the Stephen Moore article that came out a couple of weeks ago where he proposed, this is what a President Trump's economic advisors proposed, replacing the income tax with a consumption tax. But first, we're going to do something a little bit different. A couple of weeks ago, the FairTax movement lost a very dear friend, and unfortunately his politics was not of the kind that endeared himself to most of the media, so he was just kind of casually mentioned and went on, so don't expect a lot of flowery praise from the media about his passing. But you met him. We're talking, of course, about Herman Cain.
Yeah, we're very sad to lose Herman Cain, and Elaine and I had the great fortune to actually meet him and talk to him one-on-one back in 2011. If you go back in history a little bit, he was exploring the idea of running for president, okay? And in fact, he made it clear. He said, I'm still in the exploratory stage. Because
I'm thinking about it, yeah.
Anyways, he was here in Ocala he was the keynote speaker in a function here. It was in Ocala, and a friend of ours gave us tickets to the meet and greet. So we talked to him. What a guy! I mean, and I also read the book. All right, his book. This is Herman Cain. All right, he came from a very humble beginnings. His parents, I'm not sure if they were high school educated, but his mom cleaned houses. His dad worked 3 jobs as a barber, a janitor, and a chauffeur. And both of Herman and his brother went to college and so forth. And of course, Herman Cain rose quickly in the industry because he was a problem solver, a great thinker, and a true patriot. I mean, he just really loved this country. And so Elaine and I were very fortunate to have a one-on-one with him. We've got a wonderful couple of pictures when we met him. So we're very sorry to lose him. America has lost a great patriot and a true friend of the FairTax. Make no doubt about it. He was a true friend of the FairTax.
Yeah, he was known mostly for his 999 plan, and he actually caught a lot of flack about that when he first came out because it looked like he was abandoning his support for the FairTax. And, oh, no. What's the story with the 999?
Well, I brought that up when I talked to him, and I told him just what you said. Geez, some people think you're abandoning the FairTax, and he was not happy when I said that. I am 100% for the FairTax. His 999 plan was 9% corporate tax, 9% individual tax, and 9% sales tax. Now, most of us in the FairTax movement shudder at the idea of giving Congress a sales tax and an income tax. If Mr. Cain made it to the presidency, all right, then I would say, okay, he wanted to do that as the way to slide into the FairTax. But the danger is if he was a one-term president or something and Congress was left with a sales tax and an income tax, we know Congress can't control themselves.
That could be a problem.
Yeah. So anyway, it gave us a challenge, but he was always thinking. He was a problem solver, and that's why he did so well in industry, because whatever task was given to him, he broke it down into its parts, and he solved the problem, okay, every time. So we lost a great patriot and a friend of the FairTax, and we're sorry to see his passing.
Indeed. Well, let's move on. This is our episode to look at Congress.gov.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
There's a good number of things here. If you go to Congress.gov and you put the words Internal Revenue Code in quotes, put that in their search function, as of the day we're recording this, you get 1,854 hits. And how many days have they been in session?
Well, according to their regular schedule, this would be 206. We're recording this on August 7th. And according to my little calculations, it's exactly 9 proposals per day. 9 proposals for each day they're in session to change the tax code and make it worse than it currently is.
Well, they do a really good job at that. The government doesn't do very much well. Well, they mess things up really well. Nothing really outstanding and memorable about the most recent proposals to change the tax code. I've noted a few of them here. S4495, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to provide for, get this, automatic advance refunds of additional stimulus tax credits for specified individuals and for other purposes. Specified
individuals?
Yeah, that means...
What, those that make a bigger contribution to their campaign fund?
Could be.
Yeah.
So, again, these things don't have any text with them, so we can't really dig into them. We just kind of have this little description about them. A little bit, there's a S4484, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to establish a carbon fee to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and for other purposes. How many times have we seen the Congress critters trying to use the tax code to accomplish other political means and ends?
Yes, we're going to stop our contribution to the carbon by holding our breaths for the rest of this episode.
That'll work. Okay. Yeah. S4463, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to include certain over-the-counter dietary supplements as qualified medical expenses. Boy, you can see the lobbyists behind that one, can't you?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Moving on down a little bit. To amend the Internal Revenue Code to provide for an election to expense certain qualified sound recording costs otherwise chargeable to capital accounts. That means if I go in the back room and record me a little gospel album, I can get a tax break.
Apparently, yeah.
Oh, man. One more. This one is H.R. 7851, excuse me, to amend the Internal Revenue Code to allow taxpayers to designate overpayment of tax as contributions. How about that? We've seen that before.
Contributions to who?
To the Congress critters, I guess. And to make additional contributions to the Homeless Veterans Assistance Fund and for other purposes. So,
okay.
There we go. We've seen that before. Remember when they were trying to cap the amount of tax that was deductible? Is that, well, just make your tax a charitable contribution and you can deduct it. The high income states were trying to pull that off a while back. Remember that?
Yeah.
And so I say nothing hugely outstanding, but just the same old meddling in the tax code that the Congress critters are always doing. And every bit of that, folks, goes away with the FairTax.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And
okay.
I'm trying to get to
real quick note on the Grassroots Corner, then let's get back into Stephen Moore's article.
Yeah. Okay. We have the first off. We have two new candidates for federal office that have signed the FairTax pledge since the last time we recorded.
Yeah, one of them was on our trip to Winter Haven.
Yep. Sergio Ortiz, Florida 9. Bob and Elaine and I made a trip to Winter Haven, Florida, and presented to a group down there, and Mr. Ortiz was there, and when Bob mentioned we have these candidates pledge, he jumped at the chance to sign.
Where do I sign?
Yeah, he was very eager.
There was a second candidate there who really was unfamiliar with the FairTax.
Yeah.
So we answered a lot of questions for him and his staff. He says, I really want to look at this a little bit in more detail before I commit to sign on to it.
You can't criticize him for that. He needs to look at it.
Read it before you commit to it. But Mr. Ortiz was, where do I sign? So we were really happy to see that.
And another candidate is Bill Engelbrecht of Florida 3. I think that
the people in Florida 3 are doing a really good job getting candidate pledges done.
He signed the pledge, but he's getting into it very late. I mean, the primary is just days away. So, anyways, but it's interesting, and we're very fortunate, very happy that they've signed the pledge. These folks see the difference that the FairTax can make, and they understand that first off, for them as a candidate, it's a winner. It really is.
So again, if you've got a candidate in your area that would be willing to sign the FairTax pledge, you can go to FairTax.org, get yourself a copy of it. You can download a hard copy if you need to, and if you can get it physically in front of one of them, that would be great, and get them to sign it in front of the camera, be it still or video, doesn't matter. Send us the pictures, of course, the candidate's name, the district they're running in, or in the case of a senator, what state they're from, and we will certainly feature those who sign the pledge on FairTax Power Radio. Again, we're educating, not endorsing, but
that's right.
It's nice to see that list continue to grow as more and more candidates realize that getting rid of the income tax is the way to go.
Yep. And like I said, for candidates that strongly strongly defend their position on the FairTax, it's a winner for them. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Grassroots Corner, Jim Bennett, he is the AFFT Grassroots Director. He is obviously on the board of directors for AFFT, the Americans for Fair Taxation. And I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but are you in a professional group? And he talks about a person that we know, Jade Walle, who is a CPA and a partner in a Big Four public accounting firm, recently submitted an article to the Oklahoma Society of CPAs. And he goes on to talk about this article. Bob and I have talked about it. Bob and Jade have talked about it on our webinar. And if you want to see the webinar, you go to flfairtax.org. That's the Florida FairTax website. And go under resources and come down to the new webinars, and you'll see it there. Okay. Anyways, he talks about if you're in another professional organization, what you can do. So the thrust of this Grassroots Corner is if you're in a professional organization, you have the opportunity to promote the FairTax. That's all I'm going to say. If you want to read this, and I strongly recommend you do, all right, you go to fairtax.org and you sign up to get their periodic emails. You will get a Grassroots Corner once a week. You will get Steve Hayes' chairman's report, and you'll get a brief thing about the FairTax guys, FairTax Power Radio, what's going to be on the episode this week, okay? And they don't bother you with a lot of other stuff, and they never, ever sell your information or share your information with anybody else. You won't get spam because you signed up at fairtax.org. Okay,
let's move along. We can get, I think, just a little bit more. Don't want to try to dwell on something forever until it just becomes old news and nobody cares anymore. But this article by Stephen Moore, President Trump's economic advisor, where he was suggesting replacing the income tax with a consumption tax. Going to look at this from a little bit different angle. We've gone over it. We know what it says. But this is an opportunity for fair tax supporters to jump on it. We've been bemoaning for a long time how the fair tax specifically and consumption taxes in general are just kind of missing from the national discussion. Yeah. That they were saying nobody's even thinking about replacing the income tax. But at least now the idea of replacing the income tax with a consumption tax, and even though Mr. Moore again was not advocating specifically for the fair tax, the idea of getting rid of the income tax is the first step in getting the fair tax passed. And so what we do, that presents a really good opportunity for people who agree with him that getting rid of the income tax is a good idea to bring the conversation to the national stage. If this is just an article and then the news cycle goes on and it's gone and nobody makes any attention out of it and it doesn't really generate much stir or much support, then what does that say? It says that we as a nation are happy with the income tax, so we'll leave it alone.
But the nice thing is that
idea.
This article came to us on a Friday because Mr. Moore was on Fox News on a Thursday. Yeah. So he was on national TV.
Yeah, talking to Dana Perino.
Yeah. And talking about eliminating the income tax in favor of a consumption tax. So her national audience saw this discussion. Yeah. You can't buy advertising like that.
But we've got to jump on the opportunity, which means that if now the idea of replacing the income tax with a consumption tax has been made in a national forum, and we have to make that splash. Yeah. We have to have people responding to that idea, and one of the best things they can do is to go on PopVox and tell their Congress critters, hey, this Stephen Moore guy has got a pretty good idea. An economist who obviously knows a whole lot more about economics than 99.9% of the rest of us thinks that replacing the income tax would be rocket fuel for the economy. So if think that's a good idea, support it. Get out there, talk about R25 on PopVox and say, hey, Stephen Moore's idea, this would work really well with what he's thinking.
Yeah, it would. If you're not familiar with PopVox, POPVOX.com, great website. You have to sign up with your name. You can use an alias. You can create an alias. Sign up with your name and address. They need your address because that way they know what congressional district you're in and who your representative and your two senators are. Then you can weigh in on any pending legislation, such as H.R. 25. And you can go there and tell them why you're in favor of it and so forth. And your comments whether brief or lengthy. I saw Jade Walle's comments in there about the FairTax. Why it was several pages. A short note, several pages long.
Short note from Jade.
Yeah. Anyways, and those comments will go to your representative and your 2 senators. All right, on this year to your representative, and you can check out the others. There are very few people who believe they're against it, and when you read their comments, you'll understand that they don't really understand what the FairTax is.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're going to take some of that and take some of those on in the next episode of FairTax
next
Power
week's
Radio.
episode.
We're going to look at some of the things that people have left comments on PopVox that clearly don't understand the FairTax.
They're instructive.
But we've got to use this opportunity now that the idea of replacing the income tax has been made on the national stage.
Yep.
Hey guys, jump on it. We need to let the folks that are making these suggestions know, hey, we're with you. We support you. We think this is a great idea as well. Yeah. And, of course, PopVox is not the only place you can do that. All kinds of social media.
Oh, yeah. Social media, hit the social media. But
if the big ones don't take it down.
How about, well, and that's why recently I've been spending more time on Parler and Gab because of the censoring that's going on Facebook and Twitter. I mean, there's just no reason for that. That's nuts. Except that, the powers that be don't like it. Anyways, but there's another way we can handle this too. We can talk
which would be
talking to the president. Okay, we can't talk to the president directly unless you happen to run into him at one of the campaign events or something.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But and a friend of ours that lives here has talked to him personally. Anyways, whitehouse.gov/contact. This is a great way to contact the president. Whitehouse.gov/contact. You put in your name and address and so forth, and you say what your subject is, and maybe we can thank the president for sending his presidential advisor out there to talk about the consumption tax, replacing the income tax, because over the past few months,
Mr. President, your own advisor has a really good idea here. Listen to it.
And the thing is, the president has been talking about getting rid of the payroll tax, which the FairTax would do. Right? It almost seems to me, of course, I don't have any proof, but it almost seems to me like the administration is kind of slowly morphing into getting rid of the income tax, or at least pieces of the income tax, in favor of the consumption tax. But we're glad to see that movement, but we have to, like Bob says, we have to keep it going, and we need your help to do this.
Yes.
So one of the ways is whitehouse.gov/contact, and send your comments to the president.
Yeah, Mr. President, tell the IRS you're fired. Okay? That works.
Yeah. Or maybe we can we can do this.
Defund the IRS. That would be a wonderful idea.
All right. So,
but again, we think we're going to try to be able to get an interview with Stephen Moore. Now, I'm not sure that we're a big enough fish that he's going to want to talk to us, but
maybe if enough of us bug him. All right,
enough of us bug him. So, I think a couple of FairTax people have already suggested that he talk to us. Of course, we would love to interview him, and if we can get a hold of him, and if he's willing to talk to us, we certainly will.
Yeah,
but
absolutely,
we'll keep trying on that. But we need to get rid of the income tax.
And along with us interviewing, what I'd really like to do is record a discussion between he and Steve Hayes as to now Steve Moore's plan is not the FairTax. It's a consumption tax. It has a different rate and it maintains the payroll tax. Okay, so it's still talking about getting rid of the income tax except for the payroll tax. Well, the reason we don't like that, there's several reasons. One, the payroll tax is very regressive.
Oh, it's horrible. We're going to get into that on the next show.
Yeah, but so it's not the same. So maybe Steve Moore and Steve Hayes can go back and forth on, okay, well, my plan will do this, and the FairTax will do that. I'd love to have that discussion.
We will offer those gentlemen the entire show and maybe 2 shows if they need it, just to sit down and have a panel discussion about it. The one thing about Stephen Moore's plan that I felt really troublesome was the idea of giving people a card so that they would not be charged the tax until their spending reaches a certain level.
Yeah.
Trying to track what everybody spends and charge or not charge the tax based on whether your spending has exceeded the cap level or not. Just collect it from everybody and give them back in the prebate like the FairTax does. A lot simpler, much, much less fraud prone. I mean, can you imagine the black market people will be trying to clone those exemption cards?
Yeah. Oh boy, what a disaster that would be. And Steve, we have to give Steve more credit because his plan actually has been around longer than the FairTax. I think the FairTax grew out of it. Okay, I've got this email from Steve Hayes when this whole thing, hit the fan a couple weeks ago. All right. Interesting. His proposal is the old Tozin bill. Billy Tozin was a congressman from Louisiana. I guess he was a pretty colorful character. He was on my board promoting this in 1992. So Steve Hayes and Steve Moore have been working on this, and Steve Hayes was working on this proposal before the FairTax was born. He says he doesn't replace the payroll tax, and that's why it can be 17% instead of 23%. Obviously, this is being promoted from what I read as Steve's plan and not the FairTax, but it's still good that he is promoting the bill. Yeah, because promoting the idea of a consumption tax, getting rid of the income tax, is a very good idea.
The first step is you've got to convince people the income tax has got to go. Once that decision is made, then the discussion turns to, okay, what are we going to replace it with?
Yeah.
And in that case, the fair tax is going to shine above any other consumption tax out there.
We'll have that discussion every day. Now, it's funny that Steve's wife, Paula, who is a CPA, all right? Steve's a tax attorney. Paula's a CPA, okay? Billy Tozin and Dick Armey, congressman from Texas, sponsored the Scrap the Code debate tour in 1997, where they went around the country and debated the sales tax versus the flat tax. We went to several of these, and they were quite fun. And
I bet.
Yeah, and Steve added later in another email, he says, yeah, Billy wiped the floor with him.
Yeah, I bet he did. Okay, but again, the idea has been tossed out on a national stage. It is up to us, fair tax supporters, get your friends, get your family, get everybody you can to either go to PopVox, go to whitehouse.gov/contact. Let's make some noise and let the powers that be know that we, the people, are behind Stephen Moore's idea of getting rid of the income tax.
Yeah, okay. It's very, very critical.
Okay, we're quickly running out of time here. We got to mention our IRS contest again.
Yeah.
If the IRS made, blank, fill that in any kind of product that you want to, and if you can find a photo that's not, subject to copyright, or if you can draw something of your own, we got a really good one here from Chuck Livermore is his name, right? Of course, we're going to hold this open for another several weeks here, because we've got a whole bunch of fair tax gear that we're going to give out first, second, and third. But Chuck Livermore, for those of you who are listening in an audio-only format, we might have to, let's see if we can describe this. If the IRS designed a handgun, okay, you'd have the handgun with the grip and the trigger in its normal position, but the barrel is pointing back at you. Those of you watching on video, there's the picture of it. But if the IRS designed a handgun, you'd shoot yourself. Good one, Chuck. That's a good one. Definitely in the running for a prize here.
Yep, I downloaded that picture and I showed this to my wife this morning. She laughed for like 5 minutes.
So again, if you've got an idea, if the IRS made, pick out any product you want to, and send us a meme or a cartoon or whatever on it, and to the fairtaxguys@gmail.com. For another couple of weeks, we'll be running this one. And but that's it. The IRS made a handgun, and the barrel would point back at you instead of away at the other person.
Geez. Okay. Very clever, very clever. So I like that. Okay. I also want to mention, while we're doing our call to action, we're going to do our call to action now?
Yes, you might.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go, join the AFFT, which I already mentioned, fairtax.org. All right, they need your help because it is a national organization. They got big bills, all right, to a tune of about 10 grand a month. So they need everybody's help if we're going to get this done, okay?
Yes, and AFFT has a new board member, does it not?
Yes, yes.
we got to mention that.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
Jade Walle is now on the board of directors of the National Group Americans for Fair Taxation. He was voted in a few weeks ago. Of course, that's our CPA buddy from Colorado. Can you imagine the enthusiasm and the knowledge and experience that he will bring to that movement?
Yep, and Jade sent an email recently about 2 interviews he did on radio stations.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to try to, we've sent those to our FairTax Power Radio Network coordinator, Bob Scarborough. And let's see if we can pick up some more radio stations for FairTax Power Radio.
So if you have a local talk, whatever, radio station that's interested in running the weekly half-hour episode of FairTax Power Radio, let us know at thefairtaxguys@gmail.com, and we'll give that information to Bob Scarborough. Like Bob Paxton said, he's our network coordinator, okay, and he's doing a fine job.
Yep.
Okay, I want to make sure that everybody knows that the FairTax Guys website, fairtaxguys.com, has a new directory page, okay? If you look at the website, and you'll see an online link up there, and that has all the different social media and every place that you could find FairTax Power Radio that I listed earlier.
We're everywhere. We're everywhere. We're everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook, YouTube, Parler, Gab, Twitter, Instagram. There are podcasts on, 3 different, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, and Spreaker, okay? And then, of course, there's our website. So it's really hard to escape FairTax Power Radio. So.
And we have a free app that you can download to your phone.
That's right. Thank you. Yep.
You're
okay.
welcome. No charge.
All right. And letters to the editor. These are very important as things get, percolating. It is an election year, and people are looking at the letters to the editor. So let's put a couple in there about the fair tax. And if a candidate is truly interested in real tax reform, they're going to support the fair tax. They're not going to make over what we have now and make it actually worse than it is, okay? So letters to the editor about the fair tax are helpful.
Letters to the editor saying Stephen Moore has the right idea.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And again, call your local and national talk shows. We did a couple of months ago, Randy managed to get on with the Rush Limbaugh show when he had a substitute in there. So, it can happen, all right? We already mentioned Whitehouse.gov/contact. That's very good. And Popbox. Take one of these to whenever we start town halls again, all right? Take a scrolling banner, and we're going to talk more about the new logo store when we get the information on it.
They are revamping the logo store.
Yep.
And we've got somebody working on a new website for that, and that's going to be pretty cool. So.
Yep. So, anyways, and the webinars, which they're, like I said, they're on flfairtax.org, resources, drop down to new webinars, okay? We do those every 3 months, and they're with Bob and Jade Walle, okay?
And I tell you what, we're out of time.
Yeah.
That's going to wrap up this edition of FairTax Power Radio. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
The FairTax Guys, again, reminding you that the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Fair tax is coming.